How you doing? I'm Joe Dallas. Thank you for joining me for the podcast. You're walking down the street and you see a sign in somebody's front yard, and it says, "We believe." That piques your interest, so you come a little closer and you read the sign, and it says, "We believe six things here. Love is love. Science is real. Black Lives Matter. Water is life. Women's rights are human rights. Kindness is everything." Now you're puzzled because you pretty much agree. You thought everybody pretty much agreed on those things. I don't know. Kindness is everything is a bit of a stretch. Kindness is not necessarily everything, but yeah, everybody should be kind. So, I mean, basically, you agree with what you're reading, but something's not sitting well with you. You noticed, for example, there's some rainbow design over the saying about love being love. And you're thinking, well, wait a minute, does that mean I'm supposed to be gay affirming if I believe in love? You see that it says science is real, and you think, well, does that mean I have to believe everything all scientists say about things like evolution or global warming? It says Black Lives Matter, and you're like, well, yeah, of course Black Lives Matter, but I'm not sure I can get behind the Black Lives Matter movement. Am I supposed to? Water is life. Yeah, I believe that water is pretty darned important. Does that mean I have to believe everything that all the conservationists believe? Women's rights are human rights. Yeah, I'm all over that. But a lot of people interpret women's rights as including the right to kill their unborn baby. Does that mean if I'm against that, I'm against women's rights and therefore I'm against human rights? And hey, kindness is everything. Well, kindness, like I said, it's important, but are all the world's problems going to be solved just by kindness? So the sign says a lot of things you kind of agree with, but something's making you a little uneasy because there are implications, and that's the point. The sign is making statements you agree with. You're not sure you agree with the definitions the author of the sign is using. But if you're objecting to what that sign says, where does that put you? Well, you're in the bad guy camp. That means you don't agree. Well, then you're against love and you're against women's rights and you're against science and you're against clean water. What kind of guy are you? Okay, hey, that's the power of indoctrination. And indoctrination is what cancel culture is all about. Indoctrination is the first of the three major cancel culture tactics: indoctrinate, segregate, subordinate. All three: indoctrinate, segregate, subordinate. First, indoctrinate, that is, impose and establish a common belief on the culture. Indoctrinate the culture, impose an established belief on the culture, and then you've got indoctrination in place. Secondly, segregate, that is, marginalize those who don't comply. And this is human history, isn't it? Anytime any government or any group or any agency has tried to impose an established belief on everyone, there have been dissenters, always. Well, the dissenters then have to be marginalized, right? You have to marginalize the dissenters. How do you do it? You segregate them. They are haters. They are the other. Then you need to subordinate the dissenters, diminish the rights and influence of the marginalized. Well, that's what we're facing in America today: indoctrination, segregation, and marginalizing. The social, political, and theological left, they've been successful in all three. And we already see the evidence of all three, right? We certainly see indoctrination. We see indoctrination in modern education across the board, from the college level, university level, on down to kindergarten indoctrination. We see indoctrination in our corporations. Major corporations have been indoctrinated and are now agents of indoctrination to their employees through sensitivity training sessions and hiring and firing policies and so forth. We certainly see indoctrination in and through the news media, and we certainly see it in and through the arts, all of the arts. We see indoctrination. We see segregation. I mean, if you hold views that are opposed to the views of the indoctrination or the doctrines that they're trying to impose, how are you segregated? You're labeled a hater. You're labeled a phobe of some kind. There's homophobes and transphobes and xenophobes. You're a phobe, or you're an ist, a sexist, or a racist, or a nationalist. That's how you get segregated. And how are the people being segregated, being subordinated? Well, a lot of them are losing their careers, right? Sure, they are. A lot of people lose their relationships. I won't speak to you as long as you are a fill in the blank racist, homophobe, transphobe. Legal bans, speech codes, segregation's already happening. All three are already happening. Now, a sign in a yard does not accomplish all of that. No, it does not. It's a part of it. It's a part of the indoctrination. You've probably faced it by now looking in your own neighborhood. You see the sign, that is an open attempt at indoctrination. Does that mean people don't have the right to put up a sign? Of course not. People have the right to put up any kind of sign they want. But it's what the sign is implying and what the sign is stating that we want to be responding to as Bible believing Christians and disciples. So today and over the next 6 weeks, I'd like to look at the We Believe sign. I'd like to look at the 7 claims of the We Believe sign, the 7 tenets of it. I'd like to offer some biblical responses to each that I hope you'll be able to use. So today, let's start with love is love. Love is love. Kind of self-evident, isn't it? It's sort of like the saying Black Lives Matter. Well, of course Black Lives Matter. And of course, love is love. Nobody's arguing with that. Um, what that saying means and how that saying should affect behavior and public policy, that's where we have our disagreements, because the saying love is love presumes that if we object to love expressed between people of the same sex, or love expressed sexually between 3 people, or if we object to different ways people express their feelings for each other, we either do not recognize the love they have for each other, we deny that it's there, or we denigrate love itself. So a lot of people will say, oh, you don't even recognize, for example, that lesbians and gays can love each other very much. You're denying the fact that there's any love between them, which we are not doing. I would be the first to recognize, of course, plenty of same-sex couples love each other very much. Or people will say, well, you're denigrating the importance of love. The truth is, as disciples and believers and defenders of truth, really, we recognize 3 things about love. One, we recognize love exists in different forms. Love is love. Yeah, gotcha. I know, but it certainly exists in different forms. I don't think anybody would argue that, would they? There's familial love. There's affectional love, love for my friends, love for my dog, for heaven's sake. That's affectional love. And there's erotic love, sexual love. So we do recognize that love exists in different forms. Secondly, and here's where we might part company with people who put up these signs, we recognize love does not legitimize. Love does not legitimize. I would argue that love is love, that's correct, but love does not necessarily legitimize a form of a relationship. Just for example, the love affair, the long-standing relationship between the actor Spencer Tracy and the actress Katharine Hepburn. I mean, it's the stuff of Hollywood legend. The Tracy Hepburn movies, I love them myself. I'll watch them all the time. They had a very long-standing love relationship, decades long. And Mr. Tracy was a married man, and he was not married to Miss Hepburn. The relationship was adulterous. I believe their relationship was wrong and their love was real. I believe both are equally true, and the one does not cancel out the other. Therefore, although I can recognize the fact they loved each other very much, I do not believe that their love legitimized the relationship. I mean, for that matter, we read in the Old Testament that King Solomon loved his wives very much. He loved many foreign wives. And as a result, of course, his heart was turned away from God. So the love he felt for women he had no business marrying did not legitimize his illicit marriage to women, which in his case had disastrous consequences because of the worldview and the practices and beliefs of the women that he married and who he loved very much. So we recognize that love exists in different forms, and we also recognize love does not legitimize. And third, we do recognize erotic love is good. Of course, it's good within the marriage covenant. Erotic love is good within the marriage covenant. So in Genesis chapter 2, verses 18 to 25, We see both the development and the legitimization of the marriage covenant, which God himself established when he looks at the man he created and he says, you know what? It is not good for this guy to be alone. Now, what was happening there? God did not create Adam and then say, oops, I realize I made a mistake here. He's got a deficit. Gee, what am I going to do about that? No, of course not. God knew this is exactly what's going to happen. I'm going to create humanity, male and female, in my image. The man I have created will have emotional and sexual needs for partnering, and I will provide the right answer for those needs. In the woman, the contrasting human I have created, and together they both form and express my image. And I look on their union, including their sexual union and their raw, naked sexuality, and I say that is good. Now, right from the beginning, the author of Genesis also makes a careful notation. Therefore, a man shall leave his father and mother, cleave to his wife, the two will become one flesh. Jesus reiterated that when he was asked about marriage, and he said, know you not that he who created them from the beginning created them male and female? Therefore, a man will leave his father and mother, cleave to his wife, the two will become one flesh. What God has joined together, let no one set asunder. In response to the human need for sexual, romantic, and physical partnering, not to mention the social partnering needs and the business partnering needs and all that goes into a marriage, God gave a very specific definition and said within the context and the confines of this covenant between these two, erotic love is very good. I create that and I bless it. But you notice the confines of the covenant, the definition of the covenant. It is heterosexual. He created the male and female. It is permanent. What God joined together, let no one set asunder. It is monogamous. They'll become one flesh, cleave to one another, and it is independent. A man leaves his father and mother to cleave to his wife. So yes, love is good, including affectional love, familial love, and erotic love when expressed within the covenant of marriage as the Creator defined it. Love expressed outside that covenant? No, we do not believe that that is a good thing. We believe love is love, but we believe love can be misdirected, or it can exist within a relationship which is illegitimate biblically in and of itself. Now, that is a Christian belief. Certainly, there are many non-believers who don't hold that belief, but it is interesting to me that a lot of secular information confirms our beliefs. So it's not as if we are only saying we believe in an ancient inspired document and we don't pay attention to any other studies about marriage, family, and sexuality. But when we look at current studies about marriage, family, and sexuality, we see some interesting things. Just for example, 2018, a report by the Institute for Family Studies talking about married couples versus unmarried couples who live together, and it showed that married couples are more likely to stay together. Let me quote you from this study. Quote, some couples are, in essence, increasing the constraints to remain together by living together prior to dedication being clear, mutual, and high. They're moving in together without covenant, so what don't they have? Dedication being clear, mutual, and high. They haven't established yet. This is for life. This is a covenant. This is permanent. We believe that is part of why waiting until marriage is associated with lower risk in 7 separate studies. This isn't a Christian organization talking here. This is the Secular Institute for Family Studies. Now, the Pew Research in Corporation in 2019 compared married couples to cohabiting couples, couples who live together, and they found consistently a contrast in percentages. When surveyed about whether or not they believe their partner will be faithful, whether or not their partner will act in their best interest, whether or not their partner will always tell the truth, whether or not they are happy with their partner's parenting skills, whether or not they are happy with their division of chores, whether or not they're happy with their sex life, their communication, the way their partner handles money, or the way they balance their professional life and their personal life, guess what? In every one of those categories, the married couple's rate of satisfaction scored higher than the cohabiting couples. There's a reason for that. Okay. Likewise, there is a reason that there is damage done to the children when people terminate that covenant of marriage. So that the statistics on the children of divorced couples show among across the board children of parents who have divorced poor performance in academics, loss of interest in social activity, difficulty adapting to change, emotional sensitivity at a high rate, anger, irritability, introduction of destructive behavior, increase of health problems, and loss of faith in marriage and the family unit. That's what happens when people breach the covenant of marriage. What about love between people of the same sex? Love is love. Certainly agree. And I've known lesbian couples and gay couples who loved each other very much. But here's an interesting point. The National Alliance on Mental Illness said, and I quote, lesbian, gay, and bisexual adults are more than twice as likely as heterosexual adults to experience a mental health condition. Transgender individuals are nearly 4 times as likely as cisgender individuals to experience a mental health condition. Something's wrong there. Is the problem maybe because society is prejudiced and people look down on lesbians and gays and transgenders? Perhaps there was a time that argument would have held weight, but you know what? Recent studies show that 70% of the U.S. That is 70% of the US population supports same sex marriage. 71% of the US population finds homosexuality to be morally acceptable. When the majority of your surrounding culture believes that your life and your way of relating sexually is morally acceptable, and when the majority, the vast majority of the surrounding culture legitimizes same sex unions, you as a homosexual male or a lesbian woman cannot with integrity say whatever problems you have, it's because the culture does not accept you or it stigmatizes you, because that simply isn't the truth. So we, yes, do believe that love is love. We also believe that when erotic love, sexual love, is expressed outside of the covenant of marriage, it is not in the best interest of all involved. We do not believe that that means all same sex relationships or all cohabiting relationships or all people who have been divorced are destructive people involved in destructive behaviors. We do believe that all of those behaviors, all of those situations fall short of what our Creator intended. And that's a point I like to make because it's logical and I think it's easy to understand. I don't believe homosexual partnerships are horrible. I don't believe cohabitation is horrible. I don't believe that divorce always makes life horrible for everybody involved. But I believe all of those behaviors or situations fall short of what our Creator intended for our own best interest. So, what's a biblical response to the first part of the sign? Love is love. 3 points. Point 1, I agree. Love is love. God is love for that matter. God so loved the world, he gave his only begotten son. Of course, I believe that love is love. Love is important. God himself is both the essence and definition of love. Love is love. Point 2, love does not legitimize. The fact that I love does not legitimize the nature of the relationship I am in with the person I love. I may love someone I am not entitled to love or give myself to sexually and romantically. That doesn't mean I don't love the person. It only means that love does not legitimize, which leads to my third point. Love is love. Right is right. Both are true. Love is love. Right is right. And both are true. I hope you can use those points in your own conversations. Well, if you enjoy this podcast, but you haven't yet subscribed to it, would you hit that bell and subscribe? We'd love to hear from you. Make a comment so I can know you subscribed, and I can thank you personally for that. Also, if you've not yet read my book, Christians in a Cancel Culture, now that's the book this podcast is based on. It's written to equip you to dialogue with people about homosexuality, transgender, critical race theory, abortion, or progressive Christianity. You can pick that up at Amazon.com. And if you would like to partner with our ministry here, Cloudfire Ministry, so we can go on providing free content through this podcast and other vehicles, just go to joedallas.com/giving, joedallas.com/giving. That'll show you how you can be a part of this work here. Well, we're here every Friday on Christians in a Cancel Culture. Next week, we're going to look at the part of the sign which says science is real. Let's talk about that saying. Till then, let's keep in mind the job description of the servant of the Lord. It's what you and I aspire to be, right? Well, Paul told Timothy, the servant of the Lord must not strive, but be gentle to all, apt to teach, patient, in meekness, instructing those who oppose themselves, if perhaps God will grant them repentance according to the knowledge of the truth. 2 Timothy 2:24-25. Hey, let's keep that in mind, okay? When it comes to the truth, it is not just where you stand, it's also how you stand. Good seeing you. I'll see you next week. God bless.